Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Geeky Pod with Manas. So this episode today is very special because this episode belongs to my domain, the software and IT domain. In this episode, I had the pleasure of having someone who I admire for his knowledge, for his vast experience in the industry, and his thought process. In this episode, we had the pleasure of having Mr. MK. We call him MK sir. So in this episode, we talked about his career spanning 23 years, almost 2 decades and more into the software and IT domain. He has started his career as a developer. From then on, he's become a senior software developer. Then he became a technical lead, and from then on, he became a designer. He became a project manager, and many more things. More than that, he has acted as a trainer and trained more than 1,000 plus students into various technical domains. The interesting thing is he himself is not from software world. He started his career into civil engineering department, and from then on how he has progressed and excelled his career. In his career, he has every year he has used as a step ladder, and every step he has learned something. He has contributed something to the students that he has trained, to his team members, and many more things. In this episode today, we have tried to capture his experience. We have tried to understand from him how technology shift has taken over the past 20 years and more, and how the relevance of data science is going to be in the coming future. We hear about AI, we hear about big data, and how much that big data is going to shape the future that we are going to enter in. Don't forget to hit the like button if you like this episode. Hit the subscribe button so that you keep getting updated about new episode that comes to this channel, and comment it and let me know what you like about this episode and what you don't like, what we can improve as part of this channel content as well. Thank you. Enjoy the podcast. So first I would like to know a little bit about your background.
Okay.
So how you started out, and as far as I know, you didn't have that computer science background, and then on you started. So
Yeah.
how you started out?
So actually, I have done civil engineering in my UG. So I did my engineering between 1997 and 2001, which was probably the first boom. The Y2K was going on. So basically, most of one thing is problem solving is exciting. At the same time, there is a lot of job opportunities and your friends are going there. So that is how I was hooked into, right? So that's one of the things is so you have service companies and then you have core companies, right? So the service company, they look for people with problem solving skills. So engineers solve problem anyway, if in civil, if we do it physically, how do you, plan the bridge and other things. Here we are solving that on program logic, right? So it was encouraged. So at the same time, not having IT background kind of sometimes deters you, right? Because when I got the job in campus interview, I did not have any programming skills per se. So what they said is, if your logical reasoning is good, that we will train you. So unlike these days, so typically 6 to 9 months, so they'll have trainings, right? And when we did this, okay, is it a good idea to get into IT after doing so much in the civil engineering field? That too, I studied in one of the primary institutions where we got good exposure, right? So the other choice is do MS, probably a PhD, and then get into structural engineering research and that sort of thing, right? So the thing is what do you say, so a little bit of hesitancy was there, right? Because you have people when I joined the company, so I had a mix of mechanical, PC, triple E, computer science, all from premier institutes only, right? So they used to talk in some terms which I was not aware. So initially it was a bit challenging. I was even thinking probably I should go and do my masters, but slowly I picked up the so what they know, it's bare minimum. So I kind of trained myself a little bit on operating system, databases and things like that. So then slowly I gained confidence. So that is one of the reasons, right? Initially, I was having that, I was not part of the computer science background. So even now, after 23 years, I still code probably 30-40% of my time. So, that thing, so you need to learn more to fit in.
Right.
Kind of, I implicitly made that decision to stay towards technology. So even though it's now more like high level problem solving, but I haven't seen that as a problem in the long run, as long as you slowly persist. Fortunately, I had good mentors, right? So like one of my a manager who also taught assembly language to us, he used to say learn one thing every day, and then slowly you will become a master. Little bit consistent, and eventually you will get there. So that is how I got there. I came out of my fear, and then I would say I even thrive in this field, right? So
Yeah. So when you joined, the technology was different. It's been 23 years you started your career, right?
Yeah.
So technology at that time was different than what it is now today and how it's progressing. So if you have to explain the evolution of technology over the period of time, it's been 2 decades plus.
right.
So how will you explain it from the beginning? Like when you started, what was the technology being used? Then what next you got into, and so on. Now currently into data science.
Okay. So when I joined, right, it was 2001, right? We were just out of the Y2K. So even Java is a very infant language at that time. But Java was the kind of hype. These days you talk about DevOps or data science. So Java was the slowly people were moving towards that. So I think in the service industry in India, so the major domains that give job is like banking, financial services. Is the major one. Then apart from that, you have healthcare. So they all had mainframe systems, right? Like so, initially we worked on COBOL, and backend databases. So when I compare from those days, right? So not really much change in the core, right? So you have the basic one Lyman architecture, so you have input, process, output, right? So initially it's all black box. The mainframe is sitting somewhere, and then you just work on legacy systems. So the chances of you developing something from the scratch is something like you are fortunate. But at the same time, these systems were built in such a way. Certain systems are an art by itself. So you would learn COBOL, and then when you go there, the way some of the things that they have done would inspire you to talk more, right?
Right.
And then talk to people, and then get more information. And the other thing is, those systems also put restrictions, even where you can type, which position you start, where you can end. You cannot just like that you can code, right? The comment has to be some if it is a comment, it has to have that certain syntax like that. So that means you work in restricted bound.
Right.
So that eventually gives you discipline, right? So one thing I would say that really helped me a lot working in this legacy system, because now you have so many options, so many features, but that means also unless otherwise you enforce a discipline, either external or internal. So you might simply develop something that become unmaintainable, right? So the major thing are legacy systems, mainframes, and then Java is coming up. So I was initially trained on an AS400 system, and then I worked on mainframes for almost I think first 10 years of my career I was in mainframes. So then those systems were evolving, right? Right. It's not that we are creating new applications. A lot of times we re-engineer things. So then I moved from the mainframe systems to like Linux platform, custom built ETL applications. So, and then the third iteration is on the cloud. So right now, recently, so we were moving. Even even here also, like on the fourth iteration, we are trying to do cloud native. So, but the fundamental principles, so they remain the same, right? So I would a lot of time when I talk about cloud computing,
Right.
I kind of talk to my especially colleagues who are not into cloud, right? I talk to them. I can map each and everything that we do in cloud almost to whatever. So here we call it services. They call it a subsystem. So that means a lot of times you have different names. It's like old wine and the new bottle.
Right.
So if you have your fundamentals right, a programming language, like how do you write, and the database connectivity, and then if you have UI, so you can easily learn new things by extrapolating it with what you know. So in my career, so I had my initial 3 months training on another legacy system called AS400. IBM AS400. So it's a mid-range computing, like mainframe is costly. So IBM had a solution for smaller companies. So that is where I had kind of a residential training for 3 months. So you start with the orchestration system, OS, and then like a programming language database, and then a UI. So these are all screen-based UIs, no mouse and all. Like, you use tab and other things. And then I moved to COBOL, right? So, but these things, if I'm doing it now, like it's a Unix-based application, same thing, right? Like, so you have command line, so you have programming languages. So I kind of built the new. So after that training, everything 90% of what technologies I have worked, I learned on my own, on the job, right? But the initial training, I'm not sure whether you have this. There is a book called Learning 7 Programming Languages in 7 Weeks, because it kind of abstracts the commonalities. So this 80% is like, if you know one language, you can extrapolate to other, and the 20%
follows the same pattern.
yeah. But we need to be a little bit very careful, because there is also this, every language has uniqueness. You also need to use it, right? So, so I would say like it's a lot of changes, but at the same time underneath, so we have a solid foundation that didn't change much.
Right.
For distributed computing, right now it is like parallel and distributed processing, kind of gives you a mainframe like systems, but cheaper.
Correct.
And then cloud gives you, like, anybody can start a company if they have ideas, because earlier, even if you are great, like you're a scientist, you have fantastic idea, it is very difficult.
The infrastructure cost was huge that time.
Yeah, it was like upfront cost, right?
Yeah.
So it's a blessing. So I would say like we live in a wonderful time when, as far as IT is concerned, because even you and me, so if we have an idea, like we can take a 6 month break, maybe save 6 months or 1 year salary, and then try something out. If it works, it's fine.
Correct.
Right? Like, some 2-3 lakhs, you can try your idea, which was not the case, right? So one thing I have seen is now the evolution of technology gives a level playing field to people, not being an employee, rather than anybody could become an entrepreneur.
Right.
So that is what I would say, the major thing when it comes
Shift
to
has happened.
right? Like, yeah. So
Right. So for all the years that you have done in your career so far, right? So what do you think, the technology specialization matters or domain specialization matters?
okay, so technology is a tool, right? So domain is something. So that's where the problem comes, right? So whoever is footing the bill, whoever is paying the projects, so that comes from domain, right? But we always start with technology, right? Because like you still need to know your tools well,
Correct.
so that you can pick and choose what to use, what not is. So it's a good idea to have build the domain skills, specifically. But again, it all depends on how your career progression, right? Like, so if you are shifting, and the shift also happens in the same domain, for example, banking. So you would more or less, know a lot. But there are people who move among different domains. For example, in my 23 years, I worked 16 years on one domain.
Oh.
As an educational domain, right?
Okay.
And so rest of the years pretty much on the financial services, mostly like insurance mainly.
Okay.
So what I did was like initially I focused first 3 years I focused only on the technology, trying to learn the tools like scripting languages, which you may not directly use in the project, right? So I would say like first few years focus on the technology, right? So you create a skill set for yourself, so which can be like based on the project you work on, or it can be like so you have at least one solid foundation in one programming language, an operating system, database, right? Then apart from that, like you pick tools for like version control and all those things. So initial, I also at least 3 years.
Nice.
And we have to be kind of self-driven, because project will give you a list of things. These are all things that you need to know. So we also need to go a little bit beyond. And then probably another 3-4 years. So if you focus on one domain, and then slowly you can generalize.
Oh.
Right. So for me, what I did was, I think around my fourth year, so the company itself pushed to do domain certification.
Oh.
So since I was at insurance at that time, I did a few, like around 5. They had a fellowship certification, you do 11 papers. But I did the basic 5 papers that gives you how the insurance industry works. So each paper deals with how do they charge, like how do they come up with a policy amount, like what does that you pay, so that, and they call it as underwriting and actuarials, right? And then how does that claim happens and all those things. So it kind of helped me appreciate what you do. Otherwise it is more like somebody says in the screen, something is coming and then I am expecting this, right?
Yes.
So you can very well solve it. It is more like as a kid, so you start with numbers, addition, subtraction, then you progress towards word problems, right? Then by understanding the sentence, so you need to pick which like is it an addition or subtraction, right? So domain is definitely needed. But at the same time, if you are an IT, so IT, the tools and technical languages and databases, those are your basics, right? So by around 10 plus years, so you can get a high level idea. So these days you have various AI tools, so you can have a conversation, so what are the major functions in the banking industry, like, how they organize. So if I want to build a banking system, so what are the subsystems? So like that you can slowly build.
Right.
So in that way, it will give you an idea. So you can extrapolate, right? So
with that same idea, now as we mentioned, that domain is add-on. Once we learn the technology, they add on to what we do.
Right.
And that helps us in understanding what we're doing.
Exactly.
At the long run, it will give you perspective also on the area where we're working.
Yeah.
So with that same idea, let's say as a developer, let's say we started with Java, right? So now from Java, there are languages like Golang, Go, and there is Python, Scala, all those are there. So how easy or difficult it is for a programmer to maintain with the technology shift that is happening? And because every now and then a new technology is coming,
Right.
and which one should go and choose it to learn or not?
I would say like learning the first, when it comes to language, right? So learning the first language is the most difficult thing. After that, it's all extrapolation, right? So you go on need basis, because so if you're working in a startup, right? So you try several things.
Right.
For example, in my case, I'll tell you, like anyway, if you are building an ETL application, right? So generally people prefer Python, right? Because there are tools available. But in my one of the project, so the operation doesn't want to use Python because package management is kind of difficult for them. So they prefer Java,
Okay.
which is kind of heavyweight. But as a technology representative, I put my case why we should use Python. But ultimately, so the organization has a vetted certain stack. This is what we can support. It could be like based on what kind of projects they had and how much they have invested. So that means the technology always depends on the project you work for. For example, if you don't want much change, then stick to the same company, right? But moving is not that difficult. That's what I am like. I have in this 23 years. I have probably like 5 iteration in technology change, right? So initially AS400, then mainframes. So even in mainframes, COBOL is the predominant. Then there also I worked on a different, less known language and database management system. Like these days they call it NoSQL, right? So something similar, they had IMSDB.
Okay.
And then PL1 is the programming language, one is the PL1 syntax looks more like C. So there also I could say like I worked on the less known and then the common technology. From there I have moved to the Linux based system where Perl and Oracle was used for building the systems. Then when we moved from the Linux system to cloud, Perl with MongoDB and MySQL. So they are abstracting the transaction and analytical system separately, right? So I always learn things on the go, and especially one advantage of being with a customer or a company for a long time is, so if you are proactive, you see which direction they are going, so you can learn things, right? So I generally did that. So when my customer was moving from mainframe to Linux-based in-house application, so I learned Linux on my own. And then Perl was predominantly used. Perl, probably, I don't know, many people know that it's one of the very first languages where interactive or like the backend scripts were developed. So now Python has overtaken. So why Perl? At that point, because the architect is well versed in Perl, so he kind of, he or she kind of like, wanted the application to be developed in some way. So now those are like 10 years later, so they are all gone. So the new generation came. So now, so they're like in my customer side, there is a Java-based application is going in. Some Scala or Go is also going. So, long story short, so you go with the requirement, and you always you can always fall back on what do you know and learn it. So with one caveat, for example, if you come from Java background to learn Python, so you tend to write a Python program like a Java program.
Right.
But Python has they call it as Pythonic or idiomatic Python. Certain things you do it slightly differently.
Right.
So it's still probably the 20%. 80% you can still import the knowledge exactly from Java. But you should be very mindful and conscious about picking up those specialities of Python. For example, like in Python specifically, we generally use the for each loop, right? But if you're coming from Java, if you don't find the traditional for loop, so you might go with a while loop with the initial counter I equal to 0. So that is not needed. Even if you want the index, you can use enumerate and then get the index, right? So that's how that language prefers. So you need to pick up the nuances. But even if the project is, you have a tight deadline to move from one this thing, right? So 1 or 2 weeks, I would say, like if you put full effort, you can get transition. And that's for someone who came from a non-IT background, I didn't find it that difficult. I worked on Perl, I worked on Python, and then Java, and then different. So in the last 16 years, I might have worked probably around 7 or 8 languages, and different NoSQL databases, RDBMS, and then old hierarchical databases. It's a predates RDBMS, right? 60s and 70s. So I was always able to use the existing skill, and so like the first 3-4 months, it's going to be very tough because you have to stretch your time, right? So that then once you are normal, then it will look like, right? So So that is probably, I would say, like a lot of people, they'll say like, I have been working in Java for last 8 years. So if I am moving to a new technology, then what will happen? I am starting at the beginning. I see that is something I felt like you're only augmenting, right? Like, so the Java skill is going to augment because you solve the problems, right? So having the flexibility is must, because ultimately IT is not a revenue generating, I think companies generate revenue based on the work we do, but like we are solving somebody else's problem, right? It could be a banking, like, they want to have, if something, the check takes 2 days to clear, can you do it, instantly, right? Like, earlier you put a DD, you put a check, money will come after 1 week. Now it has happened now, right? So we are solving somebody else's problem, and technology choice is always based on the customer, right? So we can suggest, but it is, so definitely, like it's doable, right? So that's what I would say.
Yeah, so the summary that you wanted to say is the flexibility is a must for a entry level.
It's, you can thrive if you have flexibility, and you see that as a add-on thing, rather than thinking of moving means I am not discarding everything. So you are only augmenting your knowledge, right?
So currently you are pursuing your master's in data sciences, right? So after all these years in your career, what prompted you to go for a master's degree?
Okay. So first of all, I believe that you don't, with the current availability of information, you don't really need to spend money. And so that is my very strong belief. So I was always on the lookout to what is happening, learn the technology. If I remember the big data and when the cloud thing came, so I tried those like Hadoop and other things. Okay. But the only problem is, so we have time deadlines, right?
Right.
So that discipline, it is very difficult to get. You want to master something in a structured way. So like I tried few years, especially with all this cloud computing. So like from probably like 2014, I tried few years to learn things on my own. And then what I realized is it is not possible. So that time I decided doing a course will give you a structure, and as a human being we always want value for the money, right? And then we are tuned to getting good score is a good thing. So these are something that comes from this, right? So I felt like so instead of doing it on your own, join a course, right? Because IT is all about upskilling, right? Like a continuous integration, continuous development. There is a continuous learning is also there. So initially, what I did is I did a course in AML. It's a AML diploma, or say it's a postgraduate program in AML. It's heavily hands-on, right? So it was a great experience. So we did machine learning, deep learning algorithms. We built a capstone project in bidirectional machine translation. This is like we built a translator from German to English. And so while doing it, I wanted to get the in-depth understanding. So I chose to do a master's, right? And why data science is because the way I have seen it. So these days, big data processing, we have large data, so big data processing techniques is something that is in demand. And so we also have cloud computing as an infrastructure, and all this analytics and prediction and everything happening over the data science or like AML area, right? So for me, I like data engineering, and since my data is going to be used by the data scientists, so I wanted to get insights about how they are using it. So that's why I did the course on AML and data science and engineering. We have equal weightage for data engineering subjects and machine learning subjects. Cool. So in that way, I can understand what they want. Right? So basically, like what, if at all you want to do a master's, so then you need to evaluate. For example, if you're more of DevOps, you like infrastructure, so you could do a course on cloud computing. So Masters, I would say, like, will give you the opportunity to learn fast by paying money, because it gives you a structure, right? So otherwise, if you are disciplined, so you can put a roadmap, and you can stick to it for next 6 to 9 months. So you don't have to pay any money, because nobody is going to look at your, okay, oh, you have done your masters, so we'll give you a job, right? So end of the day, things.
So from a person who has taken a lot of interview, right? I believe you have taken a lot of interviews in your career. So in such a, whether having degree mentioned in your resume matters or not?
Actually, nobody ever asked me about where you have done your degree or what you have done, and I have hardly remember. If I look at, I always look at the skill sets, right? So junior level, which college you came from definitely matters, because for example, like IIT or somewhere, like you feel that you have been taught, right? So. Right. But that will only give you the one foot on inside the door. So whether you are accepted fully depends on skill. I personally have not looked at what degree or where they have got it. But junior level, it can help, but you can overcome, right? So, even if you are doing it in a private college, I'm not saying like private colleges. So you start, doing the lead code challenges, hackathons, and all. And then you have online profile, right? So you have to struggle a bit. But I think it is more of what you know matters rather than the degree. That's what I feel.
Right. So also, you have worked in mostly in a single organization for a longer period of time.
Yes. Yeah.
So I'm not sure this question is relevant for you, no? So the question is, when I join a new company, when do I realize whether I should switch or not?
Okay. So, okay. So, like, again, there are several things, right? Like when you're starting out, so depends on your background. Right, so you might have, pressure to have, dependence. Like money might matter to you.
Right.
So sometimes, like, you want to learn. So when I would say, like, at least 3 years is a decent time to stay in a company, because within 6 months you can't, get, even if you're an experienced person jumping also, like within 6 months you won't get much.
Right.
And then you also need to get some idea about going on, right? So switching mostly happens for money only, I guess, at least the initial part of the career. So you need to strike a balance, right? So initially, probably depends on how the pay rise happens. That could be one criteria. And the other thing is, like, what you're doing, right? Sometimes you do the same thing over and over again, right? Like, you will be in support, so you will look at it, and then probably you'll go and update for roles. And so if the job is not satisfactory, so those are the two things, right? So it's money. I think in India, like, majority of the people come from middle class or upper lower middle class, right? So they still have dependency. So there is no hard and fast rule. But only thing I would always tell the people I interact is, if you are there, do not have, complaints, or, like, do not talk much about this is not good, that is not good, because you always have a choice to move. But if you don't like it, then if you're still there, that means there is something you are not, you are taking it as granted, right? So it's always that, you try to make it work, ask, right? Like, okay, I want a different project, or like, I have done a good job, like, I deserve a hike, or right? And within the organizational mandate, they might try to do that for you. If not,
you have options to do.
Yeah, nobody is stopping, right? The only thing is probably the notice period each companies have. Otherwise, complaining about it, or I'm just saying, because this is something usually happens around the appraisal time, right? So complaining about it, especially if you join 4 or 5 people, then it has become counterproductive.
Right.
So 2 to 3 years assess what happened in this 3 years. Like, are you there, financially, like, are you on par for your experience? Because industry standards will be always there, right? You can compare. And are you okay with it financially? Work is good to stay, or like, I can adjust whatever type of work. I need more money. You can move, right? So initial days, I still think most of the people look for financial aspects, and then slowly they want something meaningful. So that is how I stayed, mainly because I not only worked for the same company for so long, I was also working for the same client. So they understand when I say this project will take this much time. So they will, unless they have a pressing need, they'll accept with the right justification. So I felt my work is respected, my opinion counts. So that's one of the major reason I stayed, right? And then I like the work. Like I told you, like I have 5 iteration of technology change, which I learned on the job, right? So it varies, but only thing I would say, I would strongly emphasize is, because this is the routine thing that comes when I discuss with juniors. Identify the problem, talk, solve. If not, take a move. Complaining would be complaining or feeling bad about this is unfair is going to be counterproductive. Yeah. That's all I can say, right?
So right. Okay.
Yeah.
So I read one statement in, I think somewhere in LinkedIn or maybe in some book. A good manager can shape your career or destroy your careers.
Right.
How true that sentence is?
It is definitely true, because there is also another saying, right? People leave their managers, not the organization.
Yeah.
I wouldn't completely accept it, because a manager can give you opportunity to grow, give constructive feedback. So probably 80-20 only, because like end of the day, how the promotions and then salary and all those things, happen, that is at the organizational level. But a manager, if you have a manager who is also a mentor,
Can support it.
you are blessed, right? So that is definitely true. Like, if you have anything specific, you can further you can ask, but that's very true, right? Because so they need to they have to help you do the work, grow, and give a very constructive feedback. And we should be also in a position to take it and then discuss.
Okay, so why I asked this query is, recently in online, I think 2 banks, I'll not name the banks, they had a call which went online, leaked online.
Okay.
So where the manager was, some guy asked why you did not do this work yesterday. He was saying, I went for a vacation with my family. That manager was saying, I don't care about your family. You should only work and give the work. So that toxic environment also matters.
It is there. It's everywhere, right? Yeah. It's so that's, something like managers are not born.
Yeah.
Okay. I have been on both sides, right? I'll tell you, right? So they are made. So how they are made is also based on, like, for example, let's say you are the developer. You have done the development and everything. If you've done your work fine, you don't have to be there during the production implementation, right, which usually happens on the weekend, right? But if there is a problem in the code, who else can fix it?
Developer.
Right? Yeah. So, and similarly, a manager sees you like, this person has really done a good job. He would have fought tooth and nail for you to get the maximum allowable hike or promotion. And then sometimes people, okay, now, I'm not saying everybody, some people will think, oh, now I got this much, so if I jump, I'll get another 30%. So then you are going, but the manager's effort, he would have simply, kept quiet, right? Then he or she might feel like my effort got wasted. So like, every time I try this, they always go, then why should I even fight for them if the organization is saying this is what they need, they are giving, right? So they are like easy to blame. I'm not saying like they don't have any. It is a person to person. Toxic environment is there, but again we need to make sure that understand this is the place, right? And we should be able to make the decision to move on.
Cool.
And probably we might be deviating a little bit, and that is mainly because even if you know it is a toxic environment, the pay is good, you're not moving because probably you're not planning your in whatever you're earning, in the saving spending aspect clearly. Because if you have 6 months, let's say
Backup money.
backup money, you can always quit and then look for a job, right? So if you get into a trap of getting EMI to buy a car and just think you need at least 50,000 every month, then you have to survive, right?
Correct.
Toxic environments are there, but there is also thriving environment.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, it happens. Sometimes people don't get enough vacation for their own wedding, right?
Yes.
See, these days people take 2-3 weeks vacation. So those times, when you join 3 weeks vacation is something virtually unheard.
Yeah.
Right? So for me, for my wedding, I only went for 9 days. I mean, no complaint, but that is the normal thing that we did, right? So it's like we should be able to identify and move. And the other thing is, when you become a manager, right? At least you have the lessons, right? I wanted my manager to be this way. At least incorporate those things. Otherwise, there is no difference.
Correct.
We can't complain.
Just carrying forward the tradition. That's
Exactly.
Without any value addition.
Yeah, I mean, for me, all my projects, I have done KTs when I move out of the project, right? To the best. Documentation, slides, some these are the videos you can look into and all those. But 99% of the project I entered, I hardly got any KT. Then the reason I am doing this mainly because I felt it would have been nice.
Wow.
And then I slowly built, right? There are people who told me after 10 years, right? I was in a project way back in 2006. So there is one person who reached out to me around 2016, sir, because one of my mail ID was there. So that was well explained, even though you have done it for quite a while. So if you feel it, then you make the change. Because we always going to be, most of us are going to be managers at some point, right?
So now I'll ask you a question from a manager point of view. So whenever a new project is given or a problem statement is given which involves that project problem as well, how you approach or how you suggest someone should approach so that in a given time period and cost it can be achieved?
A lot of times you will have incomplete requirements, right?
Yeah.
So you need to ask questions. Certain things you can get from other people, certain things you can probe. So they might have some documentation, might be incomplete, so you can get to know. And sometimes the code itself can tell you. A lot of times I start with the data. What kind of documentation they have around the data. Even in the worst case scenario, if they have access to their database systems, there is always some schema information available. So understanding the data is where I start. And then instead of just do something quickly. So rather than going with a blank slate, see, clients and they'll have SMEs, architects and all, right? So you can do something like, I have done this. So is this the right way? And then they will guide you. Lot of times people will be willing to augment, right? Other than okay, I am new to the product, I don't know where to start. So you can ask for the initial things so what documents you have, so you can get access, and then look into what kind of because data drives the application, right? So if we have good understanding about the data and focus on the problem. Sometimes you don't need to know the entire application. It might be a simple change, adding some additional screen or adding some additional fields. So depending on, there's always trade-offs, right? So you are taking over a maintenance project, you can slowly learn. Sometimes you have a small project, right? So anytime for me, the new project, it always works is go at the backend database, try to understand the entity relationship, and do some queries, and then from there look at the documentation and code and talk to people.
Right.
And so I also conduct trainings, right? So I always tell, right? So whenever you want information from other person, somebody wants for whom you are going to seek for help, always go with this five things, right? So what is the problem you're trying to solve, or like what is it you're trying to do, and what you have done, and what is the expected. You have a general idea, right? And what you have got. If not very specifically, can you take a wild guess why you are not getting what you expect? So if you have answers to these questions, that means you have done some research, and go and ask someone. Most of the time they'll be willing to help you, and then you slowly build. Also, there's another thing, right? I have read the I think it's called The Art of Negotiation or something. Give before you ask. Sometimes, you might be able to help them in certain way. So in that way, like the existing people, if you want to get some knowledge, because they are doing it, in addition to their work, right? It is not allocated like they are going to help you. So it's a self effort, and then find the right person, have a good approach, and then slowly make the changes, and then incrementally build the problem and solve it.
Right. So before we are almost at the end of our discussion. So before we close, right, I just want to know, like, for engineers or for developers or software aspirants who wants to join the industry current day and age, let's say this year 2024 and next, who are in colleges right now, which area they should cover as per the trend is suggesting it's AI. So should they go with AI or the base which has been taught in the colleges?
I would say that, see, AI these days, so there is a lot of things happening, but at the same time, most of the people are the end users of the models that are being built. Very few people get a chance to work on the model. When I say model building,
LLMs.
Gen AI comes in every topic. It's not just LLM. For example, like, if I want to do general machine learning, I want to predict the house price. So what you are doing is, end of the day, writing 5 lines of code, which you can use it for predicting a car price also.
Correct.
So it is like importing the model, creating an object, feeding the data, train, and then you test, and then you evaluate, right? So this is the standard step. What I would suggest is focus on the data, right? So that means it can be data analytics, data engineering. You can learn about AI. So especially in India, right? So we support a lot, right? The high level research probably happens in US or somewhere, but we maintain data pipelines, and then a cloud infrastructure. So data engineering, right? So for example, if you want to get into data engineering, you have hundreds of tools, but Python is used a lot, right? Like majority is Python, and then you have a database, right? So Python and SQL is definitely a must, right? Like, so there are non-negotiable skill kind of thing. Even in cloud computing also you can use it. And then probably like understanding command line interface, Linux, right? So certain fundamental skills that your college education would help you. So on top of it, again, I would say like data analytics, data engineering, and cloud computing, right? So when you say this, the big data is underlying. So you have processing big data, that's why you need a big infrastructure, right? So this is the area where you will have a lot of opportunities
in going upcoming years.
Right? AI is like, you have one of these, plus you have understanding about machine learning models, deep learning models. It is good. For example, like I spoke to one of our contact who is a non-IT person, but he is a domain expert in financial service industry. So when he talked about LLMs or like what they do, say he was more like he wanted certain things, like can I instruct? I said like that model builds based on the data you provide. You cannot instruct only use this. When you do it, then you have to write programs. So, so like so ChatGPT or GPT. So they have small models, medium models. So you can just download, train. So that is something you can pick up. So knowing AML or deep AML helps you because whatever you're doing as a data engineer or data analyst, it's going to augment. But I would say make it as an additional skill. But so if you like, like some people like system programming, right? Like so, then cloud DevOps or data ops. Now ML ops also comes.
Yes.
So these things can help you like orchestrate big infrastructure. So you can get the same way you get money in stock market, right? Like if you can tweak your infrastructure and save costs. So that is a rewarding thing, right? And at the same time, data engineering, so building, moving data, right, from the raw source, probably like
Information.
ambiguous or like incomplete data to getting a curated data and then getting insights, data analytics and data engineering. So these are the areas I feel that will give you an edge. If you know AI, then you talk their language and then you can provide what they need, right? So because a lot of people, when I wanted to do my MTech, they suggested go into AI. So but I took a step back. I wanted to do either cloud computing or data engineering. Mainly because I like like command line, and so the DevOps will give you that sort of experience. But at the same time, data is messy, right? So that is where a lot of focus is needed. How fast you can bring the data, real time, all the streaming and everything is coming, right? So my suggestion is like in the big data computing. Well, apart from that, you have typical software development where you have full stack and all that. That's a different story. But now they say data is the new oil, right? So they have a lot of opportunities. Foundational skills, good understanding, still RDBMS, SQL, Python, and Linux operating system. And then on top of it, do small projects, right? So definitely traditional college education alone will not help, right? So they have to do it. And at the same time, to get visibility, solve problems, attend hackathons, solve problems
and all.
hackers rank, lead code and all the things. So that like you don't have to see earlier. Let's say I am a trainer. I am getting interviewed. Means like earlier they have to ask me questions and all. Like now if I have a YouTube channel, I can show it. Say that you can go and look at it. Or I have blogs.
Yeah.
Like,
Or GitHub repositories.
Right. So we need to build visibility, learn extra. So, GitHub repository is a good place, and then LinkedIn. So you can consistently repost articles. You can start with it, and you can post small your own understanding, right? Like for example, in Java, there is always this, right? String is immutable.
Why it's
There's always and then like a string buffer versus string builder and all those things, right? So so you can bring your own understanding, or you can do simple things like if you are really good in web programming, visual implementation of different sorts. How does it? There is plenty available.
Yeah, right.
But you can also build your own, and then you can showcase. I can look at it and then I can ask you a few questions and see that you copied or like you have done it, right? So definitely nobody is going to discover you, right? So we have to put enough things so that you get noticed. So additional things are required. Doing hackathons with a set of friends. So that is one way to go. And learning additional things, small tools. But the core foundation of having one strong knowledge, one programming language, a database, and OS, and not the least like a good communication skill, right?
Yeah.
Written and spoken skill is a must, right? Because end of the day, your work doesn't talk itself, right? So definitely those things I would say are fundamental. Learn as a group. If possible, teach. That's the best way to learn, because people ask question, you will not have answer. You will go back and then check. So in that way you grow, right? So those are the things that I have personally used.
Okay.
I believe when you teach, there is definitely one person who stand to benefit, the person who is teaching.
Bro.
That's the first thing, right? We always, every time I go to training, I always learn a little bit extra, or like, tell things in a different way, in a simpler way, right? So that also helps. Especially in the connected world, putting all this, WhatsApp and then groups for the right purpose, right? So that definitely helps. So in IT, I would say learning is a lifelong thing.
Lifelong process.
You cannot stop it. Then you might at some point become irrelevant, especially when you become a senior.
Yeah. Right. So,
Thank you so much for watching till the end, and if you have liked this episode, please hit the subscribe button to this channel so that you keep getting updates about every new video that comes into this channel. Hit the share button and share it with your friends, colleagues and peers who you think might get some benefit out of it. And thank you for your support. See you in the next episode.